Hello everyone, session 4 today, negotiation and campaign management, how to close influencer deals and effectively manage campaigns.
Just a quick note, because you're following this content on YouTube, if you complete all the 10 sessions, you will receive this certificate of completion. You can access it through the link below. The course is widely acknowledged by corporates, D2C brands, and most of the larger agencies. You can add it to your curriculum vitae, your CV, as well as your LinkedIn certificates, and this will help to propel your career. Now let's get back to the content.
Let's recap real quick. Last week we covered influencer outreach. The week before that, how to find the right influencers. So today will be the first time we really discuss how to manage your campaigns, the communication strategy involved in order to maximize your results. It's a really important chapter. I think out of all of these, this is probably the chapter which is the most, which has the most operational importance in order to determine if your campaign will be a success or not. So let's dive right in and go through the course content. So at first we'll discuss the 4 stages of your influencer marketing campaign. Let me actually briefly show you how this works before I explain the next chapters, just because I want to explain how this session today will be structured. So I decided to split the session today into 2 parts, 4.1 and 4.2. And the reason is this is quite a long chapter, right? So it was just too much information to put into one session. So I decided to split them up. So here are the 4 stages. And this is generally speaking throughout the course, how we structure your campaign, okay? So the first part is influencer outreach. This was actually covered last week in session 3. Then today is point 2, negotiation. In 4.1, we will cover and primarily and actually only focus on the negotiation stage of your campaign management. And then stage 3 and 4, awaiting post and relationship, this will be covered in session 4.2. I will explain in a bit what those definitions and stages mean. Then chapter 2, 4 key negotiation rules to close deals. In the negotiation session of today, we will dive into depth how to strategically communicate and discuss with influencers to close deals to maximize ROI. Okay, so this is really the stage where you will determine how much you pay for those deals, if you're able to get influencers to agree to affiliate gifting. So it's an important chapter, and we will go through the exact rules in order to close deals and negotiate effectively. Chapter 3 is workflow and automation. So you need to bring systems in here. If you don't, you will just get lost in all the manual work. So we use tools, and we will discuss in this chapter how to set everything up. Session 4 is templates. So we go through the negotiation templates and also what elements lead to better deals, right? So that's really important. Cover that in chapter 4. And then chapter 5, one of my favorites, talent managers and agencies. If you have reached out to some influencers you might have already encountered, right? They are difficult to deal with. So we will discuss briefly how to talk and negotiate with talent managers and agencies. So let's go back to the 4 stages and actually explain how this works, okay? So I think the first 2 are quite intuitive. We have influencer outreach, which is basically the process of contacting the influencers. And then the first step after you start your outreach is the negotiation stage, right? Makes sense. Negotiation is where we discuss with the influencer deals in order to close them and get them to work with you. And then once they agree to work with you, you will move into the awaiting post stage. And then, well, this is also, we strategically chose this term. Awaiting post means waiting for the post, right? So this means the influencer agreed to work with you. We have sent the product, and now we are waiting for them to post. It's an important stage in your campaign, and we'll discuss this actually in the next session 4.2. And then once they post, you'll move on to the relationship stage, where you ideally want to build long-lasting relationships with your performing influencers. And we will discuss how to do this also in 4.2. Let's quickly also show how this is structured in this workflow, which we'll get to in a second. Let me quickly see. Yeah, let's first go through the key elements of effective negotiation, and then we'll move on to the workflow. So just a few tips, okay? And this is, I think, not specifically to influencer marketing. This is also just general negotiation tips, but you should apply this in your overall communication strategy. Okay, so point one is clear and professional language, polite and friendly, right? I think quite obvious. What you want to do as a brand when you communicate is obviously you don't want to make it sound corporate, but you also don't want to make it sound too casual, right? Like it's not a serious inquiry, because influencers are looking for businesses to partner with because they want to increase their earnings, they want to increase their portfolio. So make it sound a mixture of politeness, friendly, but also professional, so that they see an opportunity in this email. Persuasive communication, right? Strategic communication to convince. We will cover that in depth when we go through the templates, because there are so many different parts which are important in order to convince the influencer to work with you, right? They have a lot of opportunities, right? A lot of brands reach out to them. So why should they choose you, and how to strategically communicate that, which is being covered in the template section. Clarity and to the point, right? Keep messages as short as possible. Avoid vague language. I think this, I will repeat it multiple times throughout this course, because people tend to write long messages, right? Avoid that as much as possible. Attention span is low. Keep messages short. It will increase your response rate and results. And then follow-ups, right? Schedule them timely, right? Avoid the weekends. Use follow-ups during the week. But either way, use follow-ups, okay? Persistency is key. You need to use follow-ups in order to maximize your results. Now, let's go actually into the workflow, okay? So I have the workflow right here. The link to this is also in the description below. Just make sure to open it and take some time to go through this, okay? Because this is essentially the roadmap on how you should structure your campaign. And we explain everything to you. So you just have to follow this course and implement everything. I will briefly discuss search and outreach. This is actually not part of today's course. This was covered in session 2 and 3, but I will just quickly explain this to you guys. And this is actually structured for two ways. Either you are working as an influencer manager and you have a superior, maybe the CMO, maybe the CEO, maybe the founder, which you need to report to. Or if you are a marketing agency and you have a client which you need to report to, right? So we start here, influencer search. Again, this was session 2. This is quite simple, okay? So I won't spend much time on it, but finding influencers using Influencer Finder tool, we showed this in session 2. And then what we do is we typically create a shortlist, or recommend to create a shortlist first, which is then sent for approval to either your manager or your client. In Influencer Hero, we covered this in the last session as well. You can export an Excel list, which you can easily share with the details, KPIs like engagement rate and all those things. And then what you do is two ways, right? Either the shortlist is being rejected, you discuss with your manager or your client what they didn't like, so you can make the adjustments, or it's approved. And then if it's approved, you move on to the long list, right? So if it's rejected, you go through the sequence again and make the iteration. And then once it's approved, you create the long list. Now, the short list, typically you could do maybe 30 influencers, right? Maybe even less, just to show your manager or your client, look, this is the influencer with the shortlist based on what we discussed. Do you approve this or not? Right? Once they approve it, again, you can go to the long list. These are the actual influencers you reach out to, right? Your manager or your client can check all of them, but those are typically a lot of profiles. So you can decide to, some of them might decide to just trust you based on the shortlist, right? Then you move on to the outreach. This is actually what will happen with the outreach sequence, which we covered in the last week's session. Create email flow, right? So you set up the communication flow. Again, either send to the client for approval or to your manager. It's rejected, make iteration, then you go back. And then once it's approved, you actually start your outreach, right? So again, this is actually part of session 2 and 3. And then once you click on send emails, this is when we move into the negotiation stage. And this is where we spent today's session 4.1 in. It's this blue negotiation box here. Awaiting post and post will be covered in session 4.2. Now let me quickly check. So we are here in the negotiation stage, and let's actually dive right into the workflow, okay? So there are typically 3 things which can happen once you send the email to the influencers. The first one is no reply, right? So no response here. This is the most common because with an average 33% response rate on our platform, on Influencer Hero, you have the majority of the influencers not replying, right? That's just name of the game. That's fine. They just don't reply, right? Then if they reply, there are two ways how they can reply, right? They're either interested or they ask for budget, right? And that happens actually, this intersection here, ask for budget, can happen here or here. So there are two ways how you should reply to an influencer, right? So if they indicate interest, the first template you have is the interested template, right? And we go through this in depth. So let me actually open it up. This link is also in the description below. You guys have access to this entire document, which includes all the templates which we use or which we share with our users, okay? So these are built based on thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of campaigns. So they're A/B tested, they have all the elements, and there are a lot of resources in here, okay? So you have all the communication templates, but also contracts, financial model templates, like all other things which you need to run your influencer campaign. So make sure to access these resources. But what I want to show here, actually for the negotiation templates, you click on outreach campaigns, and then we have sorted them based on social media platforms. You have Instagram templates, TikTok, YouTube, even Amazon. But let's go to Instagram for now. And then here we structure them based on the respective stage, okay? So remember, we are in stage 2, negotiation. So this will be negotiation stage. And you can just create here a copy and you can just use it. There are some instructions here. If you're using Influencer Hero, make sure to read them. So it just quickly explains you how you should implement them into your CRM. But let's go through the template, okay? So we have the influencers interest template, which is the first template we use in this workflow. And this is important, okay? Just because they show interest doesn't mean the deal is already closed. You still have to get them to work with you, and you still have to get them to post, right? So this is actually the first part, and we will quickly dissect this email just because it's an important email. I think the first part is quite obvious. Hi, first name. And again, this placeholder will be auto-filled in Influencer Hero. Thank you so much for your response. Excuse me. We're glad that you're interested in this collaboration. So there's not much to say here, but this is the first part, which is crucial, okay? In terms of strategic communication. For this first collaboration, you would receive a enter product name to keep plus commission percentage, so it's with 20% commission, for example, and /or discount code in exchange for an Instagram story post. So this is what's important here, okay? In exchange for an Instagram story post with the sticker link. Now, this might be a reel or whatever it is you're asking in terms of media, but you need to write in your email, or we recommend to write that you're offering the product in exchange for an Instagram story. Now, why is this? It's because it's the first time you're telling the influencer that you're sending them something in exchange for them posting, right? So this is different between a product seeding campaign where you just offer free products without obligation to post. What we recommend is actually to get them to verbally agree to what you have to offer. And this is actually the first step in minimizing your non-posting rate, right? Because remember, in affiliate and gifting campaign, it's the challenging part is to get as many influencers to post, right? Because you're not paying them. By doing this, you're verbally getting them to commit to a post in exchange for the product. Now, this doesn't mean that your posting rate will go up to 100% because of this, but these are the small things in your communication strategy which will lead to higher response rate. Okay, so make sure to include that. Now, if you prefer to use contracts, we do have contracts in the Drive folder, which is again linked in the description. So you can click on contracts here. And we have the brief version, which I would recommend, or the more detailed version for fixed payments. For gifting and affiliate, I strongly recommend not to use contracts, just because a lot of influencers will not accept it. It will actually lead to a significant drop in your onboarding rate, and it could frankly lead to an unsuccessful campaign, okay? Because you're not paying them. They don't want to be burdened with legal contracts. They don't want to read through them. They don't want to sign or commit to anything. So strongly recommend, again, for non-fixed payments campaigns, not to use contracts. If you still persist to use contracts, use the brief version. But again, I would typically tend to use contracts only for fixed payment partnerships. Now, let's move on to the next section in the influencers interested template, just because this is such an important communication template. So we covered this part. Now we move on to this part. If this trial story post goes well, you can expect us to make an offer based on your postings performance, which includes fixed payments or our brand ambassador program. Now, what are we doing in this one sentence, right? We are communicating to the influencer that there is a lot of opportunity by working with you, right? And this is really crucial. This is probably the step where I'm referring to strategic communication, because you are convincing, right? Or you have to be convincing to close and seal the deal. So even though you're not able to offer any fixed payment at the early stage or at the first post, because again, we are after the data, we want to see which influencers are able to sell. What you can do is you can explain what the next steps will look like if the first post is successful, right? And that is, we offer fixed payments and you to be included in our brand ambassador program. And this creates the atmosphere, or also creates the feeling of FOMO, fear of missing out. What will be next, right? And the additional benefit is the influencer will put more effort into the post, because they think, hey, if this initial post goes well, then they might offer me fixed payments, or there are other benefits by being part of their brand ambassador program, right? So this is an important part of your communication strategy, and make sure to include that, right? And it's also the case, because if they sell a lot, we actually prefer to work with fixed payments over commission, because affiliate commission becomes expensive. We will cover that actually in one of the next sessions, right? Then the ending of the email, if this works for you, please provide your shipping details. This is the CTA, right? In every email, you want a strong CTA at the end. Here, what you want is the address details, right? Because for the next steps, in order to send the product, you need their address, right? So we're actually in this stage here, and we covered the template which we use if the influencer is interested. Now let's move on to the communication strategy and template which you need to use if the influencer asks for a budget. And this can even happen in the next stage. So the influencer might say first, hey, this sounds super interesting, tell me more. And then you send this template, and then they say, do you have a budget for fixed payments, right? So it can happen anywhere, directly at the beginning by the response or after the first response. But either way, it's important to understand how to treat this situation where the influencer will ask for a budget, because this happens all the time, right? For the people who already did some influencer outreach, they probably know it. They get a response back with, hey, I only work with fixed payments. Now, what's just important when that happens is don't give up, okay? Let me quickly see where I have the slide deck. So it's this one, influencer asks for budget. So again, the templates are both in the description as well as in the appendix. But what's important here is that you don't give up, okay? Because influencers are eventually just trying to fish for deals, right? And try to see, okay, what's out there, right? Just because they ask for a budget in one email doesn't mean that they won't work with you for an affiliate and gifting campaign if you don't communicate strategically, right? So what that means is, by using our template, and this template, which you see here, we'll go through them and dissect different elements in a bit, is actually helping our users to onboard around 30% of the influencers which initially reject gifting, okay? So let's say, right, 100 influencers you contact, you have an average response rate of 30%, so 30% reply, and out of the 30, let's say 10 influencers ask for a fixed payment, then actually 3 of them you will be able to convert and get them to agree to affiliate and gifting by using this specific communication strategy. So let's go through the template actually and dissect what or how we do this and how we get influencers to agree to gifting. So the first part, right? Thank you for your reply. We completely understand that you don't work on affiliate basis. However, we hope you understand that this first story post is only to get a better understanding of the match towards the brand. Now, it's also good to highlight here that we work with a story post just because it's easier to get for affiliate and gifting. You can also start with a reel and then negotiate down to a story. But a story is the most casual post which influencers are, or which will increase the chance the most that they will agree to a free post, okay? At the same time, you can increase or you can add a CTA, so a link sticker, which will enable you to track the clicks, and it will also increase conversions, right? So that's why we prefer to use story posts in this negotiation sequence. Now, this is also the case. We just want one post in order to check the performance. Then what we tell them is we work with a wide variety of different compensation packages, which include fixed payments and long-term brand ambassador programs. We have been collaborating with creators for a few years now, and from our experience, we know that the performance varies widely, which is why we work with an initial story post in order for us to make a fair offer. Right? So in this first part, again, you're highlighting that we do have budgets. We work with fixed payments and we have other perks, but we also have experience working with influencers, which you also show this way, right? You show authority, you tell them, hey, we work with many influencers, also social proof, right? We know that the performance varies and we want to have one initial story post in order to make a fair offer, right? So this is actually quite similar to the previous email for this part, right? Where we explain to them that there's a lot of opportunity by working with us, right? But we just want this initial post. Based on the results of this initial post, we would be making you an offer that includes one of the combination of the before mentioned packages, right? So then what we have here, this is optional if the initial offer is increased, okay? So what you can do is you can decide to just offer a free product in your initial email, but when they reject it, you might want to increase the product offering or maybe even offer a small budget, right? If the influencer profile is attractive. And this is why we have included this section. Usually we only send out product XY. However, because we value your work and accommodation, we would love to offer you the updated offer, right? So please let me know if I can send you the product. Looking forward to hearing from you, right? So this is quite a long email, and frankly, it is a bit on the longer side, like a bit too long for me, but it's also a crucial email because you need to convert them into agreeing to working with you. So it needs a little bit more explanation, right? And frankly, most influencers will take at this stage the time to read this because they want to know what is included in this potential partnership, right? So you can afford to write a little bit longer, but again, try to keep it as short as possible. But this is the email which we use in this section here. Then what you also want to do is, in order to negotiate, you want to request if you can increase the budget. And this is something we have implemented within Influencer Hero as well. This could be because you are maybe the junior person, the marketing associate working on the campaign, and you need to request budget from your CEO, CMO, manager, whoever that is, or you are in marketing agency and you need to request budget from the client, right? So request bid to the client provides bid, negotiate and follow up with respect to the bid. If the influencer still declines, you can deactivate the deal, right? It means the influencer just won't accept even the offer you made. If the influencer agrees, we move on, right? Now, how does this section here work in terms of negotiation, right? And requesting the bids. Let me show you quickly how this works. So in the deal page, so again, if you click on these cards here, it will open the deal page. There's a button here on the left-hand side which says profile review. Request profile review, you click on it, and you can add a comment, right? So you could write, for example, influencer asked for $500, and then could we offer 300 plus additional products, something in that direction like this, and then you click on request, and then the system will actually create a prompt, and I can actually show you where you can access that. Then your manager or your client, if you're a marketing agency, can go to other tools here and then click on influencer reviews, and then they will get to this section here. And what then will happen is the offer which you have requested will be included here. So this was the deal. Influencer asked for 500. Could we offer 300 plus additional products? And then the manager or the client can, for example, enter here. Well, we call it the reason, and this is also interesting. The reason we call this maximum offer is to reduce the back and forth, okay? Because what happens is the negotiation is a step-by-step process, right? It goes back and forth. Now, in order to minimize the times this happens, we recommend here to enter the maximum amount you are willing to offer to close that deal. So for example, in the perspective of the manager or the founder or the client, you would be logging in, you can quickly open it, you can use our Chrome extension to take a quick look at the stats, right? And then you can decide if you want to allocate a budget or not. And how you do that is then you just enter here the maximum offer. And the maximum offer is the maximum amount you're willing to allocate to close this deal. Right? So this could be 200 plus, let's say, additional product, right? As an example. And then you click on submit. And then the junior person or you as the marketing agency will know how much they can allocate to close this deal, right? So if I refresh here in the, let's quickly see, here, profile review, right? $200 plus additional products, right? Now, this means, okay, I know now as a junior or the marketing agency, I can allocate $100 plus additional products, but this is the maximum offer, right? So I might start with offering $100 and additional products and then negotiate up, right? Because maybe the influencer agrees to 100, right? Then better, you could save 100, and then you can go up. So that's just a simple trick how to minimize the back and forth between the senior and the junior or the client and the marketing agency by using this, we call it max bid procedure. And then, yeah, so this basically, so the negotiation back and forth in terms of budget allocation is this stage here, right? Influencer asks for budget, request bid, client or the manager provides bid, you negotiate. If they decline, you deactivate the deal. If they agree, you can actually proceed, right? It's just the workflow which is involved here. What we will discuss now is we go through a few key negotiation tips, okay? So this will also cover actually this part in the negotiation workflow because, again, you want to structure it as effective as possible. So that's why, one more time, let me emphasize on this. You want to work with maximum offers so you avoid the back and forth, right? You just have the absolute amount you afford or you can afford to allocate to the deal. The junior basically uses that amount. Just SOP that so they know what they do, okay? So they don't allocate directly the entire max bid, but if they think they can close that deal for a lower amount, you can do that, right? Then what we will discuss briefly here is key negotiation tips in this stage. So the first one is increase product offering, right? What does this mean? It means that I always prefer to first increase product offering than offering a fixed payment, right? So the candidate might be a good profile. If you need to negotiate, first try to offer additional products, right? So if you are, let's say, a fashion brand and you're offering a dress, maybe you have additional sunglasses or maybe you have a bag, right? Which you can offer on top of the item which you're already offering. Now, why is this such a good way of negotiating? You are negotiating on a retail price while your cost is the cost of goods sold, right? The influencer sees, hey, this dress costs $120. I will get one for free, right? But for you, the cost is probably a lot lower, right? Could be 20, could be 30, depending on how high your gross margin is, right? So I always like to negotiate with products because, again, you're bargaining, you have the competitive advantage here, right, in terms of negotiation. There's an additional benefit to it. I actually want more influencers to have my products, right? Because of organic media exposure. So if I offer an additional handbag or an additional piece of maybe sunglasses, that piece of product gets, or it's likely that it will get additional media exposure, right? The influencer will wear it in their content. They might use the product, right? So there's inherently already an additional benefit in having influencers using or your products in the hands of influencers. So I'm generally speaking more generous gifting products than with fixed payments, right? Then the second thing you can do to negotiate without bloating your cost is increase your affiliate offer, right? So what you can do is just increase your affiliate percentage. And this is actually something which I'm quite surprised about all the time when I talk to people which ask me, hey, how much affiliate commission should I offer? And then when I ask them how much are you willing to offer, they often say 10% or even less, 5%, right? And then I ask them, what's your ROI or your return on ad spend on Meta, right? And they tell me 2x. And then I'm quite surprised, right? Because you're willing to offer 50% of your revenue to Meta, right? Or TikTok, whatever company you're spending your ad spend on, but you are only willing to give an influencer 5% to 10%, right? Which doesn't make sense. It's the same customer. Honestly, you even get a piece of content, UGC, and a review, so it should be worth more, right? So I always say be more generous. Also, the influencer will have some skin in the game and will be more incentivized to make a good post, right? If the affiliate commission is high. But either way, in your negotiation, offering a higher percentage is a good way to sweeten the deal without bloating your cost because you only pay if they sell, right? Then what I just already explained in the previous step is increase the offer step by step, right? That's why we offer or work again with the maximum bid offer. You don't want to offer the entire max bid at once, right? Try to negotiate, right? Because based on the influencer, you look at the profile, the way they communicate, are you talking to the manager or not, etc., etc. You can feel a bit on what the opportunities are there, right? So don't directly go, and if the manager says, okay, $500 is the max bid, offer $500 directly, but for example, offer first $200, right? And additional products. Then if they still reject, go up and say, hey, I can offer 400 or 500, right? That way you can basically marginally increase your offer and maximize your ROI. Right? Disregard rate cards. This is important. A lot of influencers work with rate cards, and if you talk to influencers before, you're probably familiar with them. Now, for affiliate and performance-driven influence campaigns, we highly recommend to just ignore rate cards. Right? They're typically meant for fixed payments campaign. They're very expensive. They're based on companies which have huge budgets, which are doing it, frankly, in a way which is not necessarily performance-driven. Right? They might not track the results, etc. Well, taking the rate cards, it will get very, very expensive. So again, we recommend to just ignore them and just negotiate from scratch, right? Tell them, hey, this is an affiliate and gifting campaign. This is what we have to offer. Or if needed, start with small budget, $100, $200, $300, right? Don't go in the thousands because again, you don't know if the influencer performs. We covered this in the first introduction session. The percentage of performing influencers is very low. So if you start to offering high fees, you might lose money, you put pressure on your ROI, and it will make your campaign more challenging, right? Then the last rule, always use follow-ups, super important. You need to use follow-ups in order to maximize the results of your campaign. And what we do here actually, and I can briefly show that to you, is automate this. So in this process here, we have sequences of emails which you can automate. So in the templates here, we actually share that as well. So again, in the description, we have these templates, and you, instead of going to outreach campaigns, you go to other automation flows, and you have waiting post follow-ups and negotiation follow-ups. And the negotiation follow-ups is the ones we want. So this is in the negotiation stage. Let's take a brief look at them. And what we have here is basically the follow-up templates, which you should use, because in every step of the process, the influencer can stop replying, right? That doesn't mean that the influencer is not interested in working with you. Don't give up and make sure to follow up in order to get them back into the funnel, right? So in this file here, we have all the follow-ups which you can use. And first negotiation follow-up. So let's briefly, how are you? Hope you're having a great week. Just want to make a quick follow-up offer. On our offer, right? So this is just quickly following up. And frankly, what you want to do is automate the follow-ups, because not only one, you want to send 2, 3, 4 follow-ups. And instead of doing that manually one by one, what you do is you create an email flow with these templates here. So again, I won't go through the details of the follow-up templates because they're quite straightforward. Just read through them, create a copy. I think 5 follow-ups is a bit over the top. You can reduce it maybe to 3, 4, but I definitely recommend more than 2 follow-ups at least. Right? So how you can automate it is essentially by saving them as email flows, right? So here we discussed in separate sessions how to create email flows. I think it was session 3. What you can then do is in the deal page here, you click on send email, and then you click on the 3 dots here. And then what you do is you click send email flow. And then what you can do is you can select the flow, and it will basically send the outreach plus the follow-ups, right? So you can automate, for example, 3, 4 follow-ups instead of doing it one by one manually, right? If the influencer replies, they will exit the flow and will stop sending the follow-ups. Real quick here, I'm not sure if I showed this earlier, but in the template manager section, this is also something, right, which makes it just easier to quickly communicate, right? First name will autofill, percentage commission, discount code will autofill. So this makes it just easier to quickly communicate on campaigns. Then the last chapter of this session is talent managers and agencies. So this is my favorite section. If you talk to influencers, you've seen it probably. Some of them, they have talent managers. This is especially the case if you go into the macro segment or even in the mega influencer space. There are a lot of talent managers, okay? And they're just doing their job. So don't take it personally. Don't get angry. But they are the gatekeeper, okay? So for us, influencer managers on the brand side, they are our biggest enemies, or enemies may be a bit strong, but it's essentially just a challenge, okay? You have to understand they're doing their job. you're doing yours, but don't give up, okay? Just because a manager replies, it doesn't mean that there's no possibility to come to a deal, okay? It makes it definitely more challenging, and it will in most cases increase the cost. However, by strategically communicating, you can get them to agree even to affiliate and gifting, okay? Now, let's first take a look at what's the situation here, right? Because what's important is that the manager doesn't have an incentive in working on a free gifting percentage because they typically earn a percentage on the deal volume. So this is how those managers get compensated, okay? They typically have an agreement with the influencer. Whenever there's a brand and they allocate a budget, right, the agency or the manager or the talent manager get a percentage of that budget, and that's how they are incentivized in the same way, right? The higher the budget, the more percentage they earn, right? Now, what's the case with an affiliate gifting campaign? There's no fixed budget, so the manager doesn't get anything, and they just block it out, right? Now, this can be challenging because maybe the influencer would be interested in getting the product and they don't mind to make a quick story post or a quick reel in exchange for the free product, but they will never hear from you if you're talking to the agent, right? So how to circumvent this? We have two ways. One way is to negotiate with the agent, with the talent manager. And here you just need to strategically communicate and understand that there's no incentives for them. So what we frequently did is actually offering a free product for the agent as well, right? This doesn't cost you much, right? Your cost of goods sold might be $20, $30, and you might be able to work with an influencer with 200,000 followers, right? Offer the agent a free product as well, explain to them, hey, the same way, right? Hey, we just want one post. Could you maybe ask the influencers if they would be open to it, right? You need to be strategic here. You're a bit at the mercy of the agent. They need to sympathize with you. They need to be interested in the product as well. And if they are, it might come to a deal, right? Second way is to reach out to the influencer with DM. Because the email, and that's the only drawback again of email, is that you might contact the talent manager. And then what you can do is just send them a quick DM through the social media platform you're most active on and try to get in contact with the influencer, right? Again, this requires some strategic way of communication because what you want to avoid is that the talent manager get upset because the influencer might forward your message to the talent manager and then they see that you're trying to circumvent them. That might upset them. So just try to be straight to the point. You need to get the influencer to be interested in the gifting offer, right? Because if they are, the influencer will tell the agent, hey, it's fine. I can make a quick reel or a quick story post in exchange for that product because I really want that product, right? So that's another way to get to work with an influencer if there is a talent manager involved. And that's pretty much it for this session. In the next session, we will cover, again, the remaining 2 stages of campaign management. They will be awaiting post. So once you send out the product, right, the sequences, the templates, the communication you should use once you hit on send product, that's really important because there you need to collect the posts and it will determine your non-posting rate. And then after that, you will move on to the relationship stage where you will onboard the influencers which perform to your brand ambassador program. So thanks a lot, everyone, and see you in the next one.